My name's Quick Pick Nick, and having simulated millions of lineups, here's your locks and lotteries for the Week 6 main slate of the NFL on FanDuel and DraftKings this Sunday, October 17th. There will be full lineups for both FanDuel and DraftKings at the end of this video, so be sure to stick around for that and subscribe so you don't miss any future full slate videos, lineups for Monday night and Thursday night football, and the tip-off of the NBA this Tuesday night. Getting right into the picks, our lock at quarterback, and seemingly the safest option at the position to score big points is Matthew Stafford. At $7,900 on FanDuel and $6,700 on DraftKings, Stafford isn't exactly cheap, but his production around 22 fantasy points per game this season justify his cost with great value on either platform. Currently, Stafford ranks third in passing yards per game across the NFL, a favorable stat going up against a Giants team that has allowed 270 passing yards per game to opponents. If for whatever reason you don't want Stafford though, a very appealing lottery quarterback is Taylor HEINICKE, costing $7,300 on FanDuel and significantly less on DraftKings at $5,800. HEINICKE has filled in well for the injured Ryan Fitzpatrick in Washington and will face probably his easiest defense yet of the Kansas City Chiefs, letting up just about 300 passing yards per game to opponents, ranking third to last in the NFL. HEINICKE had a slight dip last week against a formidable Saints defense, but other than that one shortfall, HEINICKE hasn't fallen below 21 fantasy points since he was named Washington's starter. The Chiefs have allowed the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks this season, and HEINICKE should be able to capitalize and continue to expose what seems to be only half of a real NFL team. Moving on to running backs, the top lock of this slate is Antonio Gibson, who is found in almost all top-ranked simulated lineups. This pick is just another way to take advantage of Kansas City's porous defense, which also ranks in the bottom 3 for allowed rushing yards. Gibson is also a valuable low-cost option, priced at $6,700 on FanDuel and $6,500 on DraftKings, meaning he's going to be more valuable on FanDuel considering what a dollar is worth on either platform, but still someone to check out in both cases. Another lock at running back is more circumstantial given injuries surrounding him, but what is daily fantasy if not capitalizing on those inactivities, and that lock is Kareem Hunt. Going into Week 6, Hunt has 17 FanDuel fantasy points per game with an average of 1 touchdown per game, and that was all alongside premier running back Nick Chubb. This week, Chubb has already been ruled out for Cleveland's contest against Arizona, leading towards even more utility from Hunt. Additionally, Arizona has allowed the 4th most rushing yards to opponents at 139 per game, creating a perfect storm for Hunt to steal all the spotlight against the last remaining undefeated team. There are still a few lottery running backs that were somewhat prevalent throughout several simulations if you want to make a positional swap or fill in for the flex. Austin Eckler looks to be one of the better high-cost picks, scoring 5 touchdowns across the past 2 weeks and facing a Baltimore defense that has allowed the 6th most fantasy points to running backs this season. But again, his high costs earns him his lottery designation. For similar reasons, Jonathan Taylor could also be a good choice. Taylor scored 3 touchdowns over the past couple of weeks and faces a weak Houston defense, but his cost might also be a bit too much, so consider him a light version of Eckler. Darrell Henderson is another good pick given his consistency around 15 fantasy points per game in each of his 4 weeks played and with a matchup against the Giants' bottom 5 defense and allowed rush yard. Now for the wide receivers, one of the best low-cost locks my model found is Brandon Cooks, leading his team in volume going into one of the worst Indianapolis teams we've seen in a while. The Colts have allowed the 7th most fantasy points to receivers this season, and as the 15th option on DraftKings price list and the 17th on FanDuel, Cooks is relatively affordable. Plus, no one on Houston's team comes close to Cooks in terms of usage and on-the-field output, allowing him to reap the benefit of a favorable matchup. Another lock you should find in most lineups is one of the Giants' primary receivers, either Sterling Shepard or Kadarius Toney. Both of these players are very low cost, with Toney at $600 more than Shepard on DraftKings and Shepard at $200 more than Toney on FanDuel, so this situation might be another one where you just take the cheaper of the two. But either way, the Rams defense hasn't held up to what would have been expected from their dominance last year, allowing 270 yards through the air per game to opponents. Danny Dimes has been heating up too, averaging nearly 300 passing yards per game excluding last week's early game concussion. For the long list of lotteries with many different viable options appearing in each of my top-ranked lineups, I'll try to get through as many as I can while still providing useful information. Terry McLaurin is at the top of the list here for the same reason as HEINICKE and Gibson. Kansas City's defense has not held up, and one of the primary benefactors in this game is going to be McLaurin. Both Rams receivers are also viable picks here, with Cooper Kupp obviously outpricing Robert Woods by a large margin, but both could still have value for this slate, facing that shaky Giants defense I mentioned with our Stafford pick. Even at a few thousand more dollars than Woods, Kupp still gets those deep balls and consistent targets to warrant that large price tag, so either could be worth taking depending on your budget. But if you're going to be spending those big bucks on receiver, another lottery for just a few hundred more than Kupp is DAVANTE Adams, rekindling his connection with Aaron Rodgers, finding the most receiving yards, receptions, and targets per game this season in the NFL. An especially valuable pick on DraftKings is Jamar Chase, who is still being slept on even though he's averaging a touchdown per game with the 8th most receiving yards per game as a receiver. Michael Pittman seems to be heating up for Indianapolis, averaging 9.75 targets per game excluding Week 1. The last lottery is the Patriots' top receiving threat, Jacoby Myers, facing a Dallas defense that has allowed the most passing yards to opponents opponents this season. For the tight end, our lock is going to be Hunter Henry for the same justification as Myers. Dallas has the worst secondary in the NFL, even worse than the Chiefs, providing opportunities to any potential breakouts in New England. With Henry's low cost and big games over the past 2 weeks, including a touchdown in each, Henry will likely continue to find double-digit points. Another couple of lottery tight ends are Travis KELCE, because KELCE is always going to be projected leagues ahead of any other tight end, so he might end up scoring twice as many points as any other option, but he also costs almost twice as much, earning him his lottery designation and Tyler Higbee, finding himself in a low-cost bracket near Henry with that favorable Giants matchup. For the flex, try to find someone from the previously mentioned running backs, receivers, and tight ends that might fit in with your budget, and at defense, my model tries to save as much money as possible without picking a blowout. This week, those defenses include the football team Bears and Browns on FanDuel and the football team Lions and Ravens on DraftKings. With all that being said, here are 2 of the top-ranked lineups for my model's simulations. As you can see in the DraftKings version, double-digit tight ends always seem to be pretty valuable on this platform, which is why we took both Henry and KELCE. On FanDuel, we went with a more running back heavy approach since receptions are only worth half points compared to full points on DraftKings, meaning running the ball will inherently be more valuable on this platform. In any case, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's full slate lineup, tomorrow's Monday Night Football lineup, and a lineup for the debut of the 2021 NBA season on Tuesday. Thanks for watching.